ask me about facilitation techniques, what they're usually expecting to hear is some fancy activity or particular methodology. But actually, a lot of facilitation is about the in-between moments, the things that happen between the activities or the processes that you're rolling out. It's the well-placed word, the clever phrase, even where you're standing in the room. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 facilitation techniques that often go unnoticed. They're almost invisible, but they actually make the whole workshop hang together. Hi, I'm Kerry Price. I'm the founder of the Facilitators Network, and I use the principles of deliberate generosity to make sure that no meeting or workshop is ever wasted. I've been a professional facilitator for 20 odd years, and in that time I've led thousands of meetings, workshops and community conversations. Nowadays I help other trainers and facilitators do it well too. When I'm training facilitators in our facilitation workshops, I often pause and invite people to share what they've noticed me doing. What are the little things that they've seen me do that they're not quite sure why and they're wondering if they're deliberate? To begin with, when I first asked that question, they really scrambled to find things, and that's because these techniques are almost invisible by design. But once I ask people to focus and really pay attention, there's all sorts of little words and phrases that they start to notice, and we can unpack them some more. In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 of those phrases that seem like they just roll off my tongue, but actually they're really deliberate. Let's count down from 7 to 1. Coming in at number 7 is how I give instructions to a group. So instead of just saying, jump up, find yourself a partner, I use the phrase, in a minute, I'm going to invite you to. So in a minute, I'm going to invite you to find a partner, or in a minute, I'm going to invite you to get into groups of 3. And what makes this phrasing so powerful is that in a minute tells people, not just yet, don't go running off, stay listening to the instructions. It kind of gives people a pause. In a minute, not yet, in a minute. And then the second part of that phrase, which is, I'm going to invite you to, says, you have a little bit of choice in this matter. I'm not forcing you to do anything, but the invitation is to form a group of 3 or find a partner. When people feel like they have a choice in how they participate, then when they do participate, they do it with more enthusiasm. Invisible technique number 6 is, you've got about a minute left. And maybe the phrase isn't exactly that, but nothing cuts a conversation short like cutting a conversation short. So one of the invisible techniques I use is to always give people a warning that their small group discussion is going to start coming to an end. So what that sounds like might sound different in different contexts. It might be, you're about halfway through, so if you haven't swapped over yet, now's a great time to give your partner a chance to speak. Or it might be, you've got about 3 minutes left, so just make sure that everyone's had a turn to contribute. Or, as the initial phrase said, it might be as simple as, you've got about 1 minute left. By giving people a warning that the conversation is coming to an end, when you do say it's time to wrap up the conversation, people are much more prepared and they've already been winding up before the time comes. Technique number 5 is the phrase, I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know is the phrase that I use after a small group discussion. So once everyone has been in groups, they've had a chance to share with each other, and I bring everyone back into the main room, I simply say, I'm curious to know what you chatted about in your small groups. Who's happy to share what bubbled up for them to get the ball rolling? Now this phrasing says, I'm assuming that everybody wants to share, and I'm just asking who's happy to kick us off? Who's happy to get us started and get the ball rolling? Now, I use the phrasing who's happy to rather than who wants to, because not many people genuinely want to be the first person to speak, but they might be happy to if they think it's helping out the group. I learnt this phrasing a long time ago after watching facilitators say, "Is there anyone who wants to share?" and being met with deathly silence. Let's just assume everyone does want to share and give people an opportunity to be the first. Technique 4 is one of my most favourite and most invisible techniques ever, and that is the 10 heartbeat rule. What that means is that every time I ask a question or I invite a contribution from the group, I wait 10 heartbeats. It's a really long time and you have to be comfortable sitting in silence. But why the 10 heartbeat rule is so important and so powerful is that we know about 1/3 of people in any given workshop are internal processes, which means when I ask a question or invite a contribution, about 1/3 of the people are having a whole internal dialogue before they're ready to speak. Should I ask this question now? What does she mean by what questions have we got? Is this the right, how will I, all of this thing. And then by about heartbeat 8 or 9, they're ready to bring that question or that contribution into the room. If you ask a question and then quickly go, "Oh, so anyone got any questions? Oh, nobody, good," and carry on, those internal processes never get a chance to speak. So ask the question, wait 10 heartbeats. Technique number 3 is the difference between asking who else and is there anyone else. So let's imagine that people have had a small group discussion, they've come back into the room, you've said, "I'm curious to know who's happy to kick us off." You've waited 10 heartbeats and people are starting to engage. Then it's slowly coming to an end. If I think there's more to be said or I'd like to encourage more engagement, I simply ask, "Who else?" or "What else?" And what that signals to people in the room is, "She thinks there's something else," or "She thinks someone else needs to speak." And their brains go searching for what needs to fill the gap. If I think that, "I reckon we've covered it, maybe I'm short on time, I'm wanting to bring the conversation to a close," I will use the phrase, "Is there anyone else?" or "Is there anything else?" And by asking that closed question, "Is there anything else?" people then have the opportunity to say, "Nope, no there's not." So if you're wanting to encourage engagement, who else or what else? If you're wanting to wind the conversation up or bring the conversation to a close, is there anyone else or is there anything else? So on the countdown to 1, we've got a couple left. Technique number 2 is to warn people in advance that you might interrupt. So if I'm holding a workshop where I know there are some people who are avid oversharers, maybe they like telling long stories, or sometimes they're taking the workshop off track with things that are not relevant to what we're talking about today. If I know those people are in the room, at the beginning of the workshop, I'll often say something like, "Part of my job today is to keep the workshop on time and on track. So if I feel like a conversation is heading off in a different direction, or I feel like the point has been made and we're going over things again and again, I might interrupt you just to bring the conversation back on track. It's nothing personal, it's just that I'm mindful of time." Now, by warning people at the beginning of the workshop that it might happen, when I do interrupt, people don't take it so personally. And I simply jump in by saying, "Oh, I'm just going to jump in there because I'm mindful of time." And people are okay with that because they were pre-warned the interruption might be coming. Technique number 1. Of all of the invisible techniques, the things that you might not notice, this phrase is my favourite. It is simply, what I'm hearing you say is. And it's a great way to reflect, to mirror, to summarize what someone in the room is saying so that you know you're capturing it correctly. It's really good to use after you've interrupted someone. So if I say, oh, I'm just going to jump in there because I'm mindful of time, by following it up with what I'm hearing you say is, the person feels like they've been properly heard and they don't feel like they need to go over the point again. It's also useful to summarize what the person has said for the sake of everyone else in the room. If you can capture it, summarize it, and mirror it back, it means everyone in the room is on the same page. Of course, all of these techniques only exist within a good workshop design. Like I said, these are the techniques that are in the in-between spaces, between activities and process and conversation. So if you want to be able to use these clever phrases, you need to be able to design a clever workshop. In my next video, how to design a workshop, I walk you through a 3-step process that helps you design a workshop for any context completely from scratch. The video should be playing somewhere up here. Go check it out.